Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 30th September 2016. The first article is related to the saving the public university. Now, the public university is an egalitarian space, and also the concerns of liberal arts in the public university is on how to promote social equity and justice. On the other hand, today, there is a growth of commodification of education, and the government of India as a signatory of the WTO GATS. So there is a focus on making the education commercial. So in this scenario, the government of India, it is looking at international trade in educational services, and it is allowing for the foreign universities into India. What are the advantages and disadvantages of the foreign universities? The first one is education is going to become a commodity and a service that can be sold. And the research emphasis is going to come down in the liberal arts. And added to that, the concerns of the paid education is going to be more about making or else building the technical services that give the income back to the students. It means the liberal arts are going to face the worst scenario, or they are going to get worst hit if the foreign universities are going to come up. And it is being concluded that prematurely, if the foreign universities come into India, it automatically leads to the reduction in expenditure. It automatically leads to the improvement in research quality and also the standards of the education. There is no such a established relationship between the growth of the foreign universities and education quality in India. One thing is established is the cost of the education is going to go up and access to the education is going to be diminished. And more than that, there is no much significant established relationships. So it is the time India has to better fund the research in its public universities rather than providing for foreign universities a liberal hand. That is what is the argument of this article. And coming to the surgical strikes. Now, if you understand, the Pak occupied is legitimately is part of the India as instrument of accession given by the Kashmiri king Raja Hari Singh. Now, India has clearly made it that it is a surgical strike or preemptive attack on the terror elements. So India is clear that it did not aim to attack the Pakistani army. So India is only trying to act in defense rather than in offense. So in this, the India one is about taking a very cautious approach in its engagement, and India has clearly conveyed it to the DGMO, the Director General of Military Operations, Pakistan, the message that India don't want to escalate this issue further. So it's been clearly conveyed to the Pakistan, India is a peace-loving nation, and these attacks are just to fight against the terrorism. And failure of the Pakistan to take control on these matters from its soil that prompted the India to take this surgical action. Now coming to making the books accessible to all, there is a treaty that is called Marrakesh Treaty, and it is implemented by the World Intellectual Property Organization from its Geneva office. So all the signatories of this country, they have to make the efforts to create the books in Braille and making them accessible to the people who are blind. If you see, among all the blind people, only 10% are going for the formal education. But making the books accessible to them will increase this number, and education will not be limited by this disability. For this, the WIPO is organizing Accessible Books Consortium, and India is cited as the best example under this Marrakesh Treaty. India has brought in a multi-stakeholder approach to this. Under the multi-stakeholder approach, government, private sector, all these are working together. And NGOs such as Dicey Forum India, all these are trying to convert the books for the convenience of the blind. So India is being cited as an example. And India has converted more than 2 lakh books under Sugamya Pustakalaya. So the WIPO suggests, the author suggests that Indian example need to be taken by the other countries, and they shall make the books accessible to the blind. Coming to the recent Maratha protest. Now, if you take the Marathas, it is not a homogeneous category. There are multiple levels where certain Maratha community they occupy the political power, and then there is a class division where they hold the productive assets, and then comes the marginal farmers. After that, the agricultural laborers. There is a spectrum of the people, people spread across the economic and political spectrum. So, in this context, the agricultural distress, it is making them the agriculture less remunerative, and most of the marginalized and agricultural laborers, for them only the source of income is agriculture, and this income is decreasing. And there is no educational benefits for these people, so there are no reservations for them. So because of this, they are unable to take access to the sunrising industries such as information technology. And there is a perception of loss of power, especially as economic assertiveness and educational assertiveness of the Dalits is increasing. They feel that the distance between the Dalits and themselves is decreasing. And this empowerment of the Dalits is seen as a loss of power by these Marathas. And they are raising frequently the issue of misuse of the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act. And added to that, the violence of the Dalits against the Marathas is cited as an example. So in this case, the March protests are majorly looking at providing the educational reservations in education and employment for Marathas, and also the repeal of the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act. So now it has been criticized that as Marathas form the 1/3 of the population in Maharashtra, they are using their numbers as a leverage to gain the economic and the social benefit. But however, it is a problem which is deep-seated and which lies in agrarian distress. That is what the author talks about. And coming to the spice route, now the states also are involved with the diplomacy. In this, the Kerala, which is the spices state of India, it is trying to connect with various countries which are growing the spices. And a meeting of the 31 nations and their ambassadors has been connected to connect with the trade routes. Now here to the boundary. Now the BCCI and the Supreme Court tussle is going on, and in this the Lodha committee has given a clear report to the government saying, to the Supreme Court saying that the BCCI is crossing its limits, and the Lodha recommendations need to be implemented for administrative revamp. And it said that with the existing office bearers, the revamp of the BCCI may not be possible, so it has to step down. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much.